This is going to be the very last video about how to pick the American 1100 lock you're going to ever have to watch. You are welcome. I guarantee it, or my name isn't the lockpicking lawyer. We are going to tackle the 1100 right now. Stick around until the end because I'm going to give you the absolute very most important tip on picking this lock. And chances are, if you're here watching this right now, you can't afford to miss it. Picking these locks can be a harrowing journey, or it can be easy as hell, or any level of difficulty in between, okay? There are many determining factors, including not just the lock itself, but you and what locks you've picked prior to and leading up to you thinking that you're badass enough to attempt picking this lock. And so that's where our journey begins. What have you picked so far? These locks have a sprung core, a sprung shackle. They've got pretty decent tolerances. Any combination of spools and serrated drivers and key pins. They're sprinkled with zero lift pins every now and again. And the pins inside this lock are, I believe it's 2.5 millimeters, but they're the smaller of the pins that you find inside locks. Depending on what you've picked so far, this could be the first time you're encountering some of these challenges. And that can make things more difficult for you. Not to mention that this could be the first time that you have to use top keyway tension when you're picking a lock. And if you've never done it before, well then, yeah, you'll see. Have you gotten any locks? Because you may need to get the 1100, depending on a couple of factors as well. And, you know, if you are not too good at gutting, then once again, it's going to make it a little bit harder for you. The good news, though, is that all of these obstacles can be overcome. When you first get your 1100, I suggest if you can afford it, just get 2 of them. Get 2 1100s. You may get one that is just insanely brutal to pick. And if you have a backup, then you can pick the easier of the 2 and kind of work your way up to picking the other one. You may need to figure out how to gut this lock. And trust me when I say gutting disasters can happen. Can go flying all over the place. And instead of having to wait for another lock if you lose something, or order more springs, pins, whatever, if you lose them, you'll have a backup. On the off chance you have a gutting disaster, it's just good to have some spare parts, all right? And a second 1100, all the spare parts you need. This brings us to the actual picking of the lock. It's always a good idea when you first get a lock, just go for it. Just give it a go and try picking it. Give yourself some time practicing and getting the hang of the feedback. I also think that if you are going to attempt picking this lock, then don't work on any other higher level locks until you either get this one picked or you throw it in the naughty bucket because you got to come back to it. It's one thing to play around with, you know, the locks that you've been picking or the ones that are easier for you to pick while you're trying to learn this lock, but it's a whole other thing to try to learn this one and also try to learn a few other higher level locks at the same time. What happens is you're trying to learn all the specific feedback inside of this lock. You're trying to get good at deciphering what all these little movements mean and the clicks mean and what tension you need. And if you go from this lock to then another one and another one and another one and then back to this one, you're going to take longer to figure all that out. Just guaranteed, it's going to take you way longer. So just put a hold on all other higher level locks until you get done with your 1100. Okay, whether you get it picked or toss it in the naughty bucket, that's whatever. If you're finding that you're still having trouble after giving it a good try, there's a few things that could be interfering with you getting it open. One thing that annoys me is that these locks take an awful lot of pressure on the core to actually rotate the core and pop the shackle when they are open. Now, to determine how much pressure, take your key and turn the key and just make a note of how hard you had to twist that key in order for the shackle to pop. That's how much pressure you're going to have to put on your tensioner in order for, you know, the core to rotate and the shackle to pop. Sometimes you fall into a false set and you think that you're just in a false set when actually it's open. You're just not putting enough pressure on your tensioner to, you know, turn the core and pop the shackle. So one trick you can use is when you fall into a false set, just double check. Just put a little extra pressure on your tensioner and double check your core. If you've been fighting with dropping pins over and over and over again, or you are running into a problem where suddenly nothing wants to bind, then you are probably oversetting something. And it could be that one of the pins inside your lock is a zero lift pin. A zero lift pin is one that you don't have to lift. That means it's already at the shear line. The problem with these zero lift pins is they feel like binding pins. The feedback you get from them when you touch them, they feel like a binding pin. So how do you get around a zero lift pin? Well, you just have to figure out where it is and just make a mental note not to pick that pin the next time around. All right? Even though it feels binding, you just got to know it's there and, make a note. Hey, don't pick this one. If you're struggling with not being able to feel much of any feedback, then you might be dealing with some squished springs inside of your lock. To check for this, you've got to gut your lock and see just how far each of the drivers is springing up out of the Bible when you go to gut it. If they aren't springing up at all, or if they're actually sunk down in, then you know that you need to fix your springs. Just give them a stretch and then put your lock back together. Or you can always grab spare ones out of your second American 1100 if you got one, or order new springs, whatever. But the easiest way is just to give them a stretch, put your lock back together again. And usually that will help you to feel the feedback a lot better. And remember, guys, they're supposed to be springy. They're supposed to be springy. So you're not cheating by stretching out your springs if they are squished. If you're feeling feedback, but you're still confused about what the hell it is you're feeling, you might want to learn that lock in smaller increments. And by that I mean, instead of trying to learn your lock with 5 pin stacks in there, try to learn it with 2 to start with. So gut your lock and just put 2 pin stacks back in and learn how to pick it like that. Once you got that figured out, add a 3rd pin stack and learn how to pick it like that. And so on until you get it all the way back up to being fully pinned. That's called progressive pinning. Some people think progressively pinning a lock is cheating, and if you're one of those people, then you can skip that step. But for me, I feel like if you are having trouble learning it and this is the first time you're picking that particular type of lock, then it's really not cheating, just to break it down into smaller increments and figure out your feedback. And don't forget to watch some videos about spool pins and serrated pins and how to pick them and what feedback to expect. While you have your lock gutted, it's the perfect time to take a look at the pin interactions. Things like how many spool pins and serrated pins are in your lock. Where are they situated inside of your lock? Do you have a spool pin in chamber 1 or a serrated pin in chamber 1? Things like that. How much of that pin needs picked in order to get it to the shear line. This will also reveal any zero lift pins that you might have, if any, and any very high set pins. Knowing the types of pins that are in each chamber and, seeing their interactions in the core gives you a way better understanding of what's going on inside of your lock, which in turn helps you understand the feedback that you're feeling. And taking some of the pin stacks out and dealing with it in smaller increments helps you get used to, all that feedback a whole lot quicker. Now let's talk tension. This might be the first time you are, using top of keyway tension. And if so, that adds another layer of fuckery that you have to get through in order to pick this lock. Top of keyway tension can be absolutely wonderful if you need more room in the keyway to maneuver around the warding, or if you have any zero lift pins or very low set pins that you have a greater chance in oversetting if you use bottom of keyway tension. But getting used to it can be a super pain in the butt. The tensioner can go flying out of that lock over and over and over, over and over and over, over and over and over, and over and over, over and over and over and over again. You get what I'm saying? Not to mention that you need to get the hang of picking the very first pin inside the lock that ends up being snugged up and tucked right up behind the top of keyway tensioner. That can be really hard to learn how to pick that pin. Now, there's no trick to stop the tensioner from flying out of the lock other than you just have to, go through the pain. Just go through it until you get used to it. But you can always switch to bottom of keyway tension in order to pick that first pin if you're having trouble getting to it with top of keyway tension in the way. Just switch your tensioners to bottom of keyway, pick your first pin, and then switch back to top of keyway tension if that's what you want to do. Switching around tensioners midway through picking isn't a big deal, and you are allowed to just go ahead and do that if you need to. As far as light tension versus heavy tension for this lock, look, it's going to vary depending on the lock. maybe even on the pin, and it's definitely going to vary on, what is your personal preference. All these things are going to be factors in determining how to tension this lock. You just have to experiment with it. Myself, I'm a heavy-handed tensioner, and I usually do heavier tension, but with the American 1100s, I did find that lighter tension helps me get this one open a whole lot easier. But again, you just have to experiment for yourself and see what works for you. All right, guys, the tip you've all been waiting for, the most important thing that you can do in order to get this lock open. Are you ready? Practice. Just practice. Practice picking, practice gutting, practice tensioning, okay? And if at any time you feel like you just can't get the hang of this lock no matter what you've tried, just set it aside and go learn some other locks. Because maybe you just haven't learned everything that you should have learned and you're just not ready for this one yet. And that's okay. Go pick some other stuff and, when you come back to it, you will be shocked at how much easier it is to learn this one. Just don't give up and eventually you will get this one open. I promise. Okay? All right, guys. I hope you found this video to be helpful. Please don't forget to watch a couple videos about spool pins, serrated pins. Oh, look, I made a video just like that you can check out right here. Check it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Subscribe.